Vine slowly opened her eyes, the midday sunlight filtering through the curtains. The room was empty, and she could feel the absence of Jungkook's strong presence. Her eyes fell on the empty side of the bed, missing the warmth of his arms, where she wakes up daily. He might be missing, yet the room still smelled like him. She could still feel the remnants of his aura, which had the audacity to hold her in a chokehold. It was strange how she felt safe in the company of a man world dreaded. She glanced at the clock, realizing he had already left for work. As she was done with the information about her husband's whereabouts, a wave of pain ran past her body. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed. A wave of discomfort washed over her. The realization of strong period cramps hit her, and she winced. She stood up, feeling the dull ache in her body intensify, and made her way to the bathroom. The marble floors were cold beneath her feet as she stumbled towards the medicine cabinet. Vine's reflection in the mirror showed exhaustion etched on her face. She searched for painkillers, her hands shaking slightly. Vine took the painkillers over once she found them. Dressed in one of Jungkook's oversized t-shirts, Vine immediately rushed back to her bed, getting inside. She planned to eat first, but the cramps started to get worse. The pain seemed to intensify, gnawing at her like a persistent ache. She curled up on the bed, clenching a pillow to her abdomen, trying to distract herself with a book. Minutes turned into an hour, and the pain refused to subside. Frustration bubbled within her as she tossed the book aside, attempting to find comfort in various positions. Nothing seemed to work. Restlessness settled in, and she stared at the ceiling, feeling the discomfort to fade away. The random shock of pain were too strong, they made her cry. That was when Vine decided to reach for her phone, contemplating whether to call Jungkook. A moment of hesitation swept over her. What if he was in the middle of something important? Would he be annoyed by her interruption? Nevertheless, the pain pushed her to dial his number. The phone rang for a few moments before Jungkook answered. His voice, deep and soothing, resonated through the speaker, sending shivers down her spine. Jungkook, good morning, princess. Vine bit her lip, a mix of relief and uncertainty flooding her. Did he let her sleep on purpose today? To let her rest? The mere thought brought her warmth, which usually his arms provided. Vine, Jungkook, I don't feel well. It hurts everywhere. It just hurts. There was a brief pause, and Vine held her breath, fearing his response. Then Jungkook's tone softened even more. Jungkook, did you take medicine? Vine hummed and winced, curling up in a ball. She heard sound of ruffles from the other end, and it raised her heartbeat at the thought that he was off his seat already. Jungkook, give me a few minutes. I'll be there. Try to hold it. Vian, drive safe. The door creaked open, and the room seemed to shift with Jungkook's entrance. His silhouette cast an imposing shadow against the dimly lit hallway. The air crackled with an intensity that hinted at his dominant presence. As he stepped into the room, his gaze locked onto Vian, a fusion of darkness and tenderness in his eyes. Vine's breath caught in her throat at the sight of him. Despite the intimidating aura that enveloped him, she felt a strange allure, a magnetic pull that drew her to him. Jungkook closed the door behind him with a firm thud. The sound resonated through the room like a declaration of his authority. He approached the bed with purpose, his movements deliberate and confident. One couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and anticipation. His eyes, normally warm and affectionate, now held a piercing intensity that sent shivers down his spine. He came forward and took a seat beside her figure on bed. His fingers stroked through her hair. Every touch put her body to fire. How could nothing distract her but just the sight of him? And now, only a slight touch could make her forget the world. Jungkook's voice, low and husky, cut through the charged atmosphere. Jungkook, did you have breakfast? The contrast between his powerful demeanor and the concern in his words was both disconcerting and strangely alluring. Vine shook her head and Jungkook took out his cell phone and ordered breakfast. He didn't judge her, didn't scold her to have eaten the food, simply ordered what was needed. Jungkook, let me get you a heating pad. She shook his head as he was about to get up. Jungkook moved to the side of the bed, his fingers gently tracing along her jawline. His touch was both possessive and tender, a paradox that left her breathless. Jungkook, call me immediately next time you're in problem. He removed his coat and received the breakfast when it arrived. He brought it to her and fed her with his own hands. Every bite she took was a surprise to her. Her own husband shocked her every moment of their time together. He looked rough, dangerous, and dreadful, yet he held her and treated her with the touch of an angel. Wine swallowed, feeling the fate of his words. Wine, I didn't want to disturb you. I know you have important things to deal with. He tilted her chin up, his gaze unwavering. Jungkook, you're never a disturbance, princess. You're my woman, my priority. Jungkook leaned in, his lips brushing against her forehead. The kiss was possessive, marking her as his. Yet there was an undeniable sweetness in the gesture. Jungkook, I'll take care of you. As he sat beside her on the bed, Wine couldn't help but notice the way his fingers traced patterns on her skin, a silent promise of protection. He laid down beside her, a chocolate coming out of his pocket, which was just not normal at all. A chocolate in the pocket of a cold hearted husband was a sight she was never going to forget. Jungkook heard women crave sweets a lot. She took it with a smile and Jungkook wrapped his arm around her. So she was curled up in his arms, all warm and protected. His rough, huge, and warm hand placed on her lower abdomen, providing her with the weight and comfort she needed so badly. The waves of shock reduced to none at the hotness his body transferred into her. She opened the wrapper and took a bite of the chocolate, marveling into the taste. Jungkook placed a kiss against her temple before he proceeded to tug her hair behind her ear. He placed a kiss on her jaw and then her neck before he turned her towards him. Her breath caught on her throat as she eyed the destructive man who belonged to her only. Jungkook, do you feel better? She did. She felt so good, yet she shook her head. It was successful because Jungkook tightened his arms around her body, pulling her furthermore into him. He clearly knew her intentions and simply played along. He was hers, and if she wanted him, she would have him. She rested her head against his chest, and Jungkook kissed her head. She closed her eyes after a while. The two enjoyed a movie while cuddling through the afternoon, and Jungkook stayed beside her without once complaining about his work.